Hello, my name is Nigel James Mumford and I would like to tell you a story, a real story. This is an army discharge book. Every soldier gets one when they, in this case I bought myself out of the British Army. Military conduct, exemplary. Corporal Mumford has been an outstanding NCO both in the Parachute Regiment and Special Air Service. The SAS only takes the highest grade of soldier. Mumford is a fine example of this selection. 24051180, my army number. Just to prove what I'm saying is true. Does anybody out there believe Gerry Adams was not head of the IRA? Well, Tony Blair doesn't think so. Jeremy Corbyn doesn't think so. But I think so anyway. Let me tell you why. I got sent to Northern Ireland for 2 years, 4-month tours with the Parachute Regiment, 2nd Battalion. We went to Northern Ireland and only our unit, Paris, could keep the lid on areas, Republican areas like Ballymurphy. They were the worst areas and we got the worst people to look after. But the British government put were there and couldn't get us out, Labour government. So they couldn't negotiate a peace deal for years. So we're stuck in Northern Ireland. We didn't want to go to Northern Ireland. I wasn't anti-Catholic, I was married to a Catholic woman. That's what they got called, IRA freedom fighters by Americans. Supported, funded by America. Freedom fighters. I was in a number of incidents. One in particular was the day of internment. I looked after 12 guys with gunshot wounds. One named Daniel Taggart was the one that sticks in my memory. His lungs were hanging out his back, literally out of his back, like big balloons sucking out the back. For a young man like me, I would say it was pretty horrific. But I didn't panic. I shoved his lungs back in and made an airtight dressing so he could breathe. And I kept him alive for hours till an ambulance did arrive, which was an army ambulance. Why civilian ambulances didn't arrive is because the IRA shot at the civilian ambulances and the ambulances refused to come in and evacuate the wounded, Army and IRA. So there I am looking after these people. Daniel Taggart was shot 12 times by the Army. Horrific wounds, but he wasn't the only one there. One guy shot through the neck and others shot in the leg and big wounds in their legs with the muscles hanging out. Not nice gunshot wounds, not nice. Well, anyway, getting back to the main story, there was one incident that has always been in my mind for a long time and I can't get it out of my mind, so I'm telling you about it. There's a private soldier called Francis Bell. He was shot in the top of the head and my patrol was just coming off duty when I heard the shot, one shot. So I ran back out with my patrol and on the radio they were giving the message, man down, needed a medic. So I ran back and Private Bell was lying on the pavement. He was like banana shaped, every muscle in his body was contracted. His teeth were so tight I couldn't open his mouth. The ends of his teeth were ground down, bits of tooth coming off. Incredible pain he was in. So I ran over to him. There was a river of congealed blood and cerebral spinal fluid, so I was having to kneel in it as I was treating him. I put his brains back in the top of his head and put a shell dressing on his head, keep them in, and then I just stayed with him. I cuddled him in my arms and I'm saying, it's alright, it's Jody Mumford, yeah, the medic. So he did relax eventually and he spewed up lots of blood and everything. So I was covered in blood and the blood and fluid was into my trousers. I was covered. So while I'm holding the soldier, waiting for an army ambulance to arrive, had to be an army ambulance, took a long time because the IRA shoot at ambulances. Not just shooting at This is not the first time they've done it, in my experience. I was carrying a wounded soldier to an ambulance one day with four other guys, and an IRS opened fire on his sniper. You know, an ambulance is an obvious, you know, thing. It's an ambulance. It's not an armoured car or anything like that. It's got the big mark on its ambulance. But the IRA shot at ambulances. They also blew up the Musgrave Park Hospital, killing nurses and doctors and patients. I mean, say freedom fighters, but somebody needs to make a definition in the future. What is a freedom fighter? What is a terrorist? Supported by America, these freedom fighters were animals. They never took anybody prisoner. Captain Nyrak, SAS, was captured. He was tortured for a couple of days and put through a mincing machine. You know, under the Geneva Convention, they're freedom fighters, not terrorists. Somebody needs to define this. But Coburn knows this, Blair knows this. Anyway, getting back to the story. When I'm there with this young boy, who was one of the youngest soldiers to be killed in Northern Ireland, I was looking for where the sniper was, because he hadn't been seen. We didn't know his position. So I'm weighing up how he'd been shot in the head, how he'd probably been sitting, and anyway, I decided. I looked at some flats and shops, and I thought the sniper's got to be in that direction somewhere. So after he was taken away, I took my patrol to flats. The first flat I went into, knocked through the door. There's 3 guys in this flat. They didn't know the name of the owner. They didn't have a key to the flat. And one of them I recognised years later, because at the time he was insignificant to me. A tall guy with spotty, plucky face with a bit of a beard, a bit taller than myself. But I recognised him later. His name's Jerry Adams. And he's there. And he was the spokesman for him. I mean, see, this guy didn't kiss the Blarney Stone. I think he'd had oral sex with it. But anyway, he's talking to me as if I says to him, "Did you hear and see the shooting?" He says, "What shooting?" People heard it, the shot from a mile away. He's 100 yards away. And he's laughing at me. He was using the British law to protect himself, because he was unarmed, but he was definitely involved in the killing. I'm not saying he pulled the trigger, but he oversaw the killing of Private Francis Bell. So he's guilty of murder. We probably ordered it, being head of the battalion of the Ballymurphy. And everybody knows he was a battalion commander of Ballymurphy. So anyway, I tried to get him arrested, and I give his name over the radio, and the police later told me, after trying to get him arrested and the police to come out, who refused to come out, they were frightened to come into Ballymurphy and take forensic evidence and arrest these 3 guys. They ordered me to let them go. I couldn't believe it. It's the first time I've ever wanted to kill somebody in my life. I really wanted to kill him. He was laughing and joking and making fun of a man covered in a soldier's blood. Paratroopers are very close people, and I mean, say, really, I did want to kill him. If I'd killed him, I think now I'd be very happy, man. I'd still like to kill him, but anyway. He's a freedom fighter. Everybody shakes his hand. Prince Charles, American politicians, everybody. So you're forgiving somebody who's got so much blood on his hands. Yeah, I think these days you'd forgive Hitler. Honestly do. You'd shake his hand and let him go. Politicians are sick bastards as far as I'm concerned anyway. The police are getting so corrupt and above themselves. They're not after protecting British people.